You coined, I believe, a brilliant phrase for the people who find these tweets, offence archaeologists. So before we get into the business of why the cricket board are going about getting rid of all their players for offensive tweets they may have made when they were kids, basically, who are the people looking for them?
Yeah, it's not clear, is it, Kevin? But in the case of Ollie Robinson, his offensive tweets were dug up on the same day that he made his Test debut for England. So it looks as though some rival, some troll, has been waiting all this time. I mean, the tweets in question were sent 8 years ago when he was a teenager, and some nasty, spiteful rival who's evidently jealous of his sporting success has been saving these up just to release them on the day of his Test debut. I mean, it's extraordinary. We shouldn't be punishing Ollie Robinson. We should be punishing this horrid, spiteful little troll for trying to ruin his big day.
It really is. I mean, these people, they spend a lot of time clearly trawling through all the social media, looking for anything that could get people into trouble, and then they want to ruin their lives. I mean, it is moronic ruthlessness, isn't it?
It is. I mean, it's just, it's one thing for some nasty, spiteful basement dweller to come up with this nonsense on the day Ollie Robinson makes his Test debut for England, represents his country. But it's quite another for the English Cricket Board to actually take them seriously and suspend Ollie Robinson pending the outcome of an investigation into silly sophomoric things he said as a teenager. I mean, that is just completely ridiculous. Can all the members of the board and the executive team at the English Cricket Board, can they really hold their hand up and say, I never did anything stupid when I was a teenager. I never said anything silly. If you look into my past, you'll discover I've always been a complete goody two-shoes. I very much doubt it. I mean, they've essentially declared, they've painted big targets on their own backs and said, why not investigate us to discover if we're hypocrites? Because I don't imagine that they'll all come out of this squeaky clean.
Exactly. And now they've proudly announced they may have found another offender who posted, drum roll, an offensive tweet when he was 15, still a child. Presumably, if they say they're investigating this, if they find evidence that this did in fact happen, some fully adult cricketer is going to be cancelled, one of our Test players, for something he did when he was still a kid.
It's ridiculous, isn't it? I mean, how far back are people now prepared to go, given that kids are now on social media, from a very early age? Are children going to be punished in future? Are their careers going to be derailed because of things they said when they were 5 or 6? It's just completely ridiculous. In the Free Speech Union, we've come across a couple of cases in which people are being suspended at work and placed under investigation, not for things they've posted on public social media platforms, but because of things they've said in WhatsApp groups. In one case, it was someone had said this. It wasn't even in a WhatsApp group. It was a WhatsApp message to his then boyfriend. He broke up with his boyfriend, and the boyfriend had saved this supposedly offensive thing he'd said to him in a private one-on-one WhatsApp chat, disclosed it to his employers, and as a result, this person was fired. It is absolutely extraordinary how there are no boundaries now, no sense of something being private or in the past. Anything someone can dig up about you can now be used as evidence against your character, even if it was in the distant past and happened when you were a child.
And the authorities, the companies that you just mentioned, and in this instance, the England Cricket Board, I mean, I presume that the reason they comply with all this and go, oh my God, look, there is a tweet here that he posted 15 years ago when he was 12. We'll have to cancel him. Presumably they think that signals their own virtue.
I imagine so, Kevin. And also, I think they're probably terrified that, if they don't do the bidding of the witchfinder generals on Twitter whipping up these outrage mobs, that the mobs will turn on them. It's a way of trying to get out of trouble, to make the scandal go away, to stop the press calling. They genuflect before the mob in the hope that if they show enough kind of contrition, if they're seen to be doing exactly what the outrage mob is asking, then the mob will disperse and go away, and they can go back to leading a quiet life. And in fact, as we know, Kevin, that's an incredibly naive response. The moment you give in to these Puritans, these witchfinders, they don't give up. They just try and dig deeper and deeper into people's past. And once they've got one scalp, they're then looking for more. To try and disperse the mobs by doing what they want is like throwing, a scrap of raw meat to a shoal of piranha fish. Once they smell blood in the water, they just go completely nuts.
These are the Salem cricket trials. It really is bizarre. I mean, on a wider scale, Toby, I mean, what the hell is going on in this country? This is just really, really pernicious and really worrying, don't you think?
It is. I mean, it's, when I set up the Free Speech Union in February of last year, Kevin, I thought that free speech had never been in greater peril than at any time since the Second World War in the United Kingdom. But I didn't think things could get any worse than they were. I thought, we've reached peak woke. Things can only improve from now on. And actually, things have got considerably worse in the last 15, 16 months or so. And now I'm wondering, well, where is it going to end? If they're now going through the tweets of children and placing them under investigation, decades later, it's like, well, how much further can they go?
I mean, if you didn't laugh, you'd cry. On Twitter today, there were a lot of people saying, so all these people saying that Ollie Robinson should be forgiven for a tweet that he posted when he was 18. They don't seem to think that Shamima Begum should be forgiven for joining ISIS when she was 15. There's not a whole lot of equivalence there, is there?
Not really, no. I mean, it's one thing, saying something a bit silly on social media, trying to impress your friends. It's quite another to join an Islamist terrorist organization that, burns innocent people alive. So I don't think those two things are really comparable. But in Ollie Robinson's case, I think we should bear in mind that as soon as these tweets were brought to light, he immediately apologized.
I know.
And he seemed quite sincere in that apology. He said, I'm not that person anymore. I was a bit of a prat when I was 18. I did do some pretty foolish things, which I now regret. Please forgive me. And, I think we should forgive him.
I agree with you.
We might think that he said some silly things, but I mean,
forgive him.
Only the most uncharitable would think that they should be held against him now for the rest of his life.
It's just ridiculous. And worse than that, the team is going to get worse and worse and worse at this rate. There won't be any of them left.